my Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask you for pardon of my sins and grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Today's Gospel comes from the dialogue, the very intimate dialogue of Jesus with his apostles on the night before he dies on the cross. He's just washed the feet of his disciples, and now he's about also to give them the Eucharist, and with them what is sometimes called the New Commandment. And it begins with Jesus saying something very beautiful to his apostles when he says, "You are my friends." And it's always nice for somebody to say, "You're a great friend of mine," or "I consider you one of my best friends." And Jesus is essentially saying that to the apostles. You are my friends. If you do what I command you, I shall not call you servants anymore, because a servant does not know his master's business. And we could ask, why now? Why does Jesus call them his friends? And he goes on to explain why now. He says, I call you friends because I have made known to you everything I have learned from my Father. This is something very simple. It's something that you and I often do. With our friends, we open our hearts. We tell them things that we don't tell to other people. In other words, we confide in them. And we don't have to tell them, look, this is a secret, don't tell anybody else. We just confide. It's very clearly, very personal. It's just between you and that friend. And that is exactly what Jesus is doing with his apostles now, confiding to them, as it were, his secret or his intimate life, the things that he learned from his Father, which are the most intimate things about Jesus. And this is a special characteristic of friendship, both the friendship that Jesus has or wants with you and with me, and also a characteristic that our friendships have to have with other people. Because in a certain sense, friendship is all about confidence. You can really confide in a friend. There's a special closeness with a friend that you don't have with people who are, well, you like them, but they're not friends. You wouldn't call them friends of yours. The Greek philosopher Aristotle put this very nicely when he said that friendship leads to a single soul living in two bodies. It's amazing. He's really kind of trying to describe how close, well, obviously good friends are. It's like they're one soul, two different bodies, but really one soul. And we can imagine that Jesus, you want this kind of friendship with each one of us, that we would be, as it were, one single soul in different bodies, sure, but one single soul. And also, he wants that you and I would have this kind of friendship with other people. In other words, I think Jesus, you are teaching us how to be good friends. Christ in this gospel and this whole scene really opens his heart wide to his disciples. And he's kind of telling us, you do the same with your friends. Really open your hearts to your friends. Fortunately, I suppose now, ironically, this is a little bit rare, precisely because we're so interconnected. I mean, with the phone especially. And this doesn't really necessarily lead to deep friendship. It leads to maybe superficial acquaintances, but not to deep friendship. This is something that Pope Francis wrote about in that letter of his, Gaudium Evangelii. And I think it's very good, a little bit long, but it's very good. This is what he said. Many want their interpersonal relationships provided by sophisticated equipment, by screens and systems which can be turned on and off on command. Meanwhile, the gospel tells us to run the risk of a face-to-face encounter with others, with their physical presence, which challenges us, with their pain and their pleas, with their joy, which infects us in our close and continuous interaction. It's very true, isn't it? It's so easy maybe to even to ring somebody rather than to meet them face to face, or easier still to send them a WhatsApp than to ring them. And it's so controllable. You don't have to look at them, and you can end the conversation more or less whenever you like, and that's it. It's very controlled, but it's also not very interpersonal. It doesn't risk the face-to-face encounter, which of course Jesus risks with his apostles, and in a way he risks it with you and with me. It's a lovely little Latin phrase which was coined by St. Francis de Sales to describe this kind of face-to-face encounter. He put it this way: cor loquitur, heart speaks to heart, meaning the way we should speak to our Lord, but also, I suppose, the way we should speak to one another, to our friends. That is, you don't speak to everybody. You meet somebody in a bus and you don't necessarily pour out your heart to that person. But with friends, yes, cor loquitur. These kind of special, deeper conversations. Again, Aristotle said, conversation is the soul of friendship. And you think it's very true. A friend is a person that you converse with. You have long conversations, not just a WhatsApp message. You can't really have a very deep friendship on the basis of a couple of WhatsApp messages, but a deep cor loquitur conversation. That is how friendships really begin and develop and grow deeper and deeper. Again, there's another lovely thing said about this by Don Fernando Ocariz, who's the Prelate of Opus Dei. And he says this: friendship is itself a dialogue in which we give and receive light. In friendship, plans are forged as we mutually open up new horizons. It's lovely, it's very true. You think, hobbies we take up because our friends do them, or places we go, or books we read because a friend of ours says, this is a great book, or musicians we discover because somebody says, listen to this guy. And they're very simple horizons, but sometimes they're much deeper horizons, a conversion, change of life, because a friend opens to us this new horizon. We should really, this way, come to treasure our friends. C.S. Lewis says also a very nice thing about friendship. He says that friendship is the instrument by which God reveals to each of us the beauties of others. And they're lovely. God reveals to us in friendship, by growing in friendship, by these conversations, cor loquitur, you begin to realize this is a wonderful person. We begin to see their wonderful qualities, their beauties, through these conversations. It's also nice to think, in fact, that something like that happens when you or I, for example, sit in front of a tabernacle and converse with Jesus, cor loquitur, and we begin to discover the beauties of Jesus. And maybe, I don't know, we'd have to ask Jesus, he begins to discover our beauties, as it were, that Jesus begins to love us more. We become a friend, a deep personal friend of his. So anyway, there's many different lessons we can learn from Jesus, teaching us all about friendship. And let's thank God for our friends. And also, let's ask him to make new ones, as Jesus does. These apostles, acquaintances, servants even. But then at a certain point, Jesus says, well, look, you're no longer servants. You're now friends. I give you thanks, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask you for help to put them into effect. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.